another day, another perfect ambiance for reading books. It is rainy outside, and I am ready to do a lot of different things. Welcome welcome back. My name is Anna, and I love books. I clearly haven't done this in a while because I'm not the best at an intro right now, but we're here. I have a lot going on. As you saw, I started reorganizing my bookshelves now that I'm in my new space. I have a TBR shelf I'm very happy about. I still am finishing this bookshelf behind me. I have a lot of decisions to make still about where I want like games and movies to go versus books. And also, I still have to finish putting all the stuff in my desk. There's just like random stuff. And it's just been really chaotic. And I've not had much self care time. So I'm doing none of those things to instead have a readathon and chill. Of course. So I'm going to quick give you a couple updates. And then I did like a whole library haul that I wanted to show you. I have too many options today. Lord help me. So yeah, I have a lot to pick from. I have too many. I'm scared. So, first of all, I watched a couple things lately. The first one was an iconic childhood rewatch, iconic nostalgia. Either you get it or you don't. And it's great because I can quote half of the movie. Actually, I can quote 90% of the movie. You know why? Because it's only horse neighs, and that is Spirit, stallion of the Cimarron. Um, iconic, iconic. I watched this with a friend because we both grew up with it and we hadn't watched it since we were little. It really doesn't hold up because like there's no dialogue, and the dialogue there is just Matt Damon pretending he's a horse. But the music is what makes this. And honestly, yeah, there's far more music than dialogue. So the music literally had to make this movie. And we watched the behind the scenes of the music production, and the musicians truly had to have passion for this and be serious about this because it's very unserious without the music. Like the music had to make it, otherwise it was going to be the most unserious thing ever. So, yeah, there's not really much to say here. You're just pretending you're a horse basically, and for all the horse girls out there, that's exactly what we did. And then I watched a movie for the first time, which I thought I would love, and I did. I gave it 5 stars easily. That is The Secret World of Ariadne. A lot of people grew up with Studio Ghibli. I did not. So the past couple of years, I've been watching a bunch of them, and this is one of my new favorites. I love Kiki's Delivery Service, and I love this one. I love the idea of being miniature. So seeing everything through the eyes of being Minnie was so fun. That in and of itself enthralled me. Like I could not think of anything else for the first like 30 minutes of the movie because I just loved seeing everything from a Minnie point of view. Moving on, bunch of books from library. Purchased a new book that I'm very excited about, and then current reads. So I I'm currently in the middle of 3 that I've marked on my Goodreads. The first one is spiritual. So that one's separate. I'm taking it really slow, like I do, just like one chapter at a time. It's about asking God really hard questions that don't have answers. It's great. And then technically, I read like one page. I've started A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which was my June read for my TBR this year. It is now August. It is now August 1st. So, yeah, no, this did not happen in July either. And frankly, wasn't going to because my July became more emotionally complicated than I expected it to be, unfortunately. But I'm a resilient, enduring woman of God, so it's okay. But yeah, so this is needs a lot of brain power. So I'm gonna try again in August. We're gonna see. We're gonna see if my brain's up for Charles Dickens. Um, Beautiful, wonderful story. There's just some themes of sacrifice that wrecked me when I read this the first time. So I'm really looking forward to reading this again. And it's a large cast of characters, little bit similar vibes to Les Mis. Like if you love a large cast of characters who are going through a lot of different kinds of trials and French Revolution era, yeah. But make it less crazy rambly like Victor Hugo, and yeah, honestly, the stories have a lot in common now that I'm thinking about it. So if you like one, you like the other, and vice versa. So yeah, at some point, this will be read, I promise. And then the third book I'm in the middle of that I'll probably start the readathon with, just because I'm a completionist, is Uglies. This was my July book, and this one I am 90 pages in. I never read these growing up, and I know that the movie recently came out, or show or something came out. Um, yes, I feel like I would have eaten this up as a teen, with all the dystopian vibes that it has. I'm curious the direction it's gonna go. You know, I'm maybe about quarter in. So when they turn 16, they undergo this pretty surgery and then move to the pretty part of town. Um, you know, very like classist in its own way. So I feel like that's about to happen, or at least there's gonna be like a divergent moment or something, you know. Wouldn't be surprised about that either. So I feel like that's gonna, you know, I'm just about to the inciting incident, right? So something's gonna happen regarding her turning 16 because she's on the cusp of turning 16. So Talia is our protagonist. Paris is her guy friend who already turned 16, and she went to go see him, and he was like, don't do that, and maybe like, you know, we can be friends still, just once you turn 16, become pretty. And so for some reason, I'm already like attached to their relationship. So I'm upset that like obviously something's gonna happen. Things are probably never gonna go how they planned them to go. So I'm already a little bit upset about that, to be honest. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I feel like it's not gonna go how it was supposed to go. Obviously, it's dystopia. So I'm like, is their friendship gonna be forever ruined? I don't know. But yeah, Shay came into the picture and is like, maybe just like don't do what everyone else is doing. Maybe just like don't undergo the surgery. Also, people aren't actually pretty. They're all just looking like uniform robots and real. That is generally our culture. So agreed. So, you know, perspective wise, I think Shay is the most level headed thus far. But I'm curious what's gonna happen. So we'll keep reading to find out. Okay, then I have a billion other options for the readathon. Something I will definitely read that I will read tomorrow is Calvin and Hobbes. Love reading Calvin and Hobbes for my summer readathon. And this is the Lazy Sunday book, so I have to read it on Sunday, obviously. So looking forward to this. I'm sure I'll know some, if not all, of the snippets in here, but I've never read this particular collection, so it's just going to be a joy and a nice little break from novels. So I love to do that. There's only like this and one other one on my TBR I've never read. And then I will have read every single Calvin Hobbes collection, which makes me very happy and nostalgic. So those are the only two I'm for sure reading. I just have too many options. I have too many options. So poetry wise, okay, this is my original ginormous treasury that I was like, this is gonna be my poetry, what's it called? Like my poetry focus of the year, and I've picked it up like 0 times. So obviously I've made no progress. And it's just an overview of a ton of different classical poets. So it's been a good landing board of like, oh, I would want to read more of this poet, add something to my TBR, or oh, that's okay. I've had my fill and I don't need to. Like Walt Whitman. Um, sorry if you love Walt Whitman. It's not for me. Oh goodness, Herman Melville wrote poetry. I do not like Moby Dick. So, maybe I'll love his poetry. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not hopeful. I gave it 1 star. And then I'm still reading Emma M. Line. Fell in love with the series after I finished volume 2. First one, not a whole lot happened, so I gave it 4 stars, but I loved her voice, and I knew like Okay, I love her voice, so this is clearly going to be a fun series. And then in volume two, there was a lot more like established relationships that were very heartwarming. And I am just loving Emma's story as she goes through a lot of grief, and it's then being overtaken by all of these new blossoming joys of relationships. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's just so nice. I love it so much. So I have volumes three and four here. And admittedly, I did already read the first letter excerpt in volume three. So this is a very plausible option. At the same time, I'm trying to save these a little bit for my family trip in a couple weeks. So unsure if I'm actually going to pick these up for the readathon. Um, the Around the World book that I've been wanting to join in on is Kintu by Jennifer Mansubuga Makumbi. And this one is about Uganda. And it's kind of a like whole bloodline story, which gives me Roots vibes by Alex Haley. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit similar to Roots, but different cultural background and just learning about a whole different country for an extended period of time. Whereas Roots obviously was like slave trade and everything. So I'm really looking forward to this, to have a ginormous slice of life and hopefully also family saga, because I do love a family saga. Okay, then here are all the other things I got. The first one is my purchase, the other ones are all from the library, and they all are like summer vibes for me. So I just need direction. And also, I just want your reactions on if you know any of these, love any of these, etc. So, the first one I purchased, especially in light of loving Emma M. Lyon, is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I love Harry Potter, of course, grew up with Harry Potter, and then I love Jenny Han, one of my all time favorite authors. So, because two of my all time favorite series are implied on the cover of this, I feel like I'm gonna love this. I also like briefly paged through it and loved the protagonist's voice. So it's like if Emma M. Line was one whole book, in my opinion. um, and yeah, it says 17-year-old Cassandra Mortmain and her family live in not so genteel poverty in a ramshackle old English castle. Here she strives over 6 turbulent months to hone her writing skills. She fills 3 notebooks with sharply funny yet poignant entries. Her journals candidly chronicle the great changes that take place within the castle's walls and her own first descent into love. By the time she pens her final entry, she has captured the castle and the heart of the reader in one of literature's most enchanting entertainments. And I can already tell she's like sassy and spunky, and I'm gonna love her. So I'm really excited to read this. I don't think I'm gonna read this super soon, but it's just gonna be a nice little treat on my TBR shelf that's gonna keep enticing me. And then some other poetry, because poetry is the most desirous for me in the summertime. I got some Mary Oliver, her new and selected poems, volume two. But specifically, what I really wanted to read that's included in this collection is Why I Wake Early. So she has some excerpts of poems from her collection, Why I Wake Early. But chances are I'll just read all of these because I love Mary Oliver. And then I love Night by Eli Wiesel, which is on my bookshelf. And so I finally want to read the other 2 books in the trilogy, Dawn and Day. This is definitely like the heaviest content with World War II and autobiography. So definitely not right now. Definitely not right now. But hopefully in the next month, I will find a little more emotional endurance to be able to dig into something a little bit heavier with a little flashlight of hope and light, right? So I am looking forward to this, but I know I probably need a little bit more of a mental breather before I can get into this. Another movie that either has come out or is about to come out, Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I loved Never Let Me Go, but I did have the ginormous plot twist spoiled for me, which was devastating. So part of me is hoping that there's another huge plot twist in this book and it's not spoiled for me and it can be like a crazy thing. There might not be. That's just me being hopeful. having a redemptive Kazuo Ishiguro experience. But in any case, the reason I added this to my TBR is it has to do with artificial intelligence to some degree. And when I read the blurb, it just reminded me of Baymax, and I just love Big Hero 6. So I'm sure it's nothing like it, but just that idea of having a friend who is supporting you unconditionally, like Baymax. I'm really looking forward to exploring his idea of artificial intelligence and what all that will look like. Oh, also, I got volume 6 from the library. I still have holds on all the other ones, so I'm just gradually collecting them. So, P.S., I have volume 6 here. And then the last one that felt very summery for me because it has to do with insects is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I like the idea of this metaphor and just really digging into a good metaphor. That's just who I am as a person. So I expect this to just be a long-winded metaphor that I'm gonna love sinking my teeth into. So whenever I want to pick this up, maybe this weekend, I will be very happy to dig into a nice little metaphor. So those are all my options. I think I'm gonna start with uglies right now, and I haven't decided if I also want to simultaneously like do a little more organizing. But yeah, stay tuned for what's to come. I did forget to mention I just saw 5 Seconds of Summer, and it was fantastic and very nostalgic. I've been loving doing things for my younger self, especially as I've been rewiring and working through trauma. Just to like remind myself I've been so many other things than the versions of myself that have been traumatized. So I got 3 friendship bracelets that I'm wearing today. 2 of them my friend made, and then we passed out a bunch to people, which was so fun. So one of them's for Ashton, because Ashton was always my favorite growing up, the red one. And then she also made the clear one that is Heartbreak Girl, which is one of my favorite songs. They had a secret song that we all voted for, so I voted for Heartbreak Girl, and we got Heartbreak Girl. Everyone was screaming. We were so excited. I don't know why they hate the song so much, because the fans love it. So I was screaming my heart out to that whole song. And then I received the purple one from another fan, which is for Callum. And I love Callum and Ashton's friendship as well. And shout out to the 2 unmarried men in the band still, because we all have to stick together. So yeah, that was such a joy that I got to have that this week. number 2. So I am doing 3 days again because it's not been like a full day yesterday or today because I have different things going on. So I think 3 days altogether will be like the length of a normal readathon. I'm pretty sure that's what I did in the spring too. So anyway, here's my update. I mainly just read scripture yesterday. I started reading the book of Job, which I've been meaning to read for like a month. So it's already just been really good to dig into like theology around suffering and pain, and just those very real application questions that we struggle with in the tension of a good God and a broken world. So that's already been really, really wonderful to sit in that tension and just be okay with sitting in that tension. So that's been really good. I read another chapter of Can I Say That? How Unsafe Questions Lead Us to the Real God. So this is my like supplementary Christian reading right now. And this is by Brenna Blaine. I found her through Jackie Hill Perry and Preston Perry because I listen to their podcast regularly. They had her on to talk about suffering and a lot of the trauma that she's been through in her life with an overdose and addictions and all kinds of things. So she also goes into a lot of her testimony and her story here, and a lot of really hard topics that don't neatly fit into Christianity, and working through like, you know, her same-sex attraction and all of that. So I'm reading like a chapter at a time, and I really liked the chapter I just read. It was about can I feel safe, and how she expected to feel shunned, she expected to feel ostracized because of her story and because of her sexuality and everything, and that she was met with open arms, and she was instead met with gratitude that she was willing to be in a spiritual space as she is. So that really moved me to tears because I think we are so used to people responding poorly. We're so used to people emulating Christ and pushing people away who should not be pushed away. And so it was really, really wonderful to read that. The chapter I'll be reading for today is called Can My Humanity Lead to Holiness? There's a lot of really good questions in here, so I'm excited to keep reading. If you have a lot of messy questions spiritually, I would recommend that you pick this up because her testimony is really real and raw, and it's not neat. So I think people just need that reminder that just because someone is a Christian doesn't mean they're neat. It doesn't mean they have it all together, that they're put together, that they don't struggle with anything. And yeah, we just have to keep talking about our struggles because no one has it all together. And then I was reading Uglies a lot last night, and I was like, I don't know if I'm just tired and need to go to bed. So I'm going to reassess this in the morning, but I don't think I'm liking it. And then I woke up today and I was like, no, I'm definitely just not liking it. So I actually DNF'd Uglies. I think this is a readathon first. A first DNF during a readathon. It's also way longer than it needs to be, by the way. This is like 430 pages. It definitely does not need to be that long. I properly read like 100, 150 pages, and then I started skimming, and the fact that I could skim and only read like the teensiest bit of each page and still not feel like I was out of the loop, to me is just a sign that it's way too verbose, like unnecessarily wordy. So that in and of itself, I feel like it could probably be half the size and still get all the information across. So the pacing is slow. I really liked the world setup. I found the world fascinating in the first 50-ish pages, but then it just really slowed for me. I think I didn't like the execution of the plot, and part of that could be it's pretty formulaic with the other dystopian series I read in my upbringing. Granted, I know this came before like some of those like Divergent is probably the most similar to this. But regardless, like at this point in time, it just feels redundant and not original in a way that makes it really dry for me. Um, Also, I would say the main reason that I wanted to read this is because I love themes of body image and beauty standards. And of course, the title itself suggests that that is a large piece of this. I do think for teenagers, especially who need like very high stakes and high emotions, this is a really good format for bringing them into those themes and making them re-examine like what is beauty, why, where do I pull that from, are the sources I pull that from reliable? How do I actually feel about that? It's a really good jumpstart for teens to start asking themselves those questions instead of taking everything they're absorbing without questioning it. And I think being a teenager is the perfect time to like start questioning all of those types of narratives that are forced upon you. So for that, I think it's a really great format for teenagers. For me, I am also just thinking of how I read If I Had Your Face by Frances Shaw this year, which I really loved. And just as a whole, as someone who has come to love herself, who doesn't need external validation about my self-worth, which is also a pet peeve in these types of narratives, like needing external validation. I just find that this is like way too over the top for the themes that I enjoy with body image and beauty. And especially because it is forever just a very prevalent issue among humanity in one way or another. Whether we're talking about like Ozempic, whether we're talking about just people feeling like certain celebrities right now are like very emaciated and all of this stuff. It's clearly always been a very big deal to talk about these topics and explore these themes. And so for me, like it's so important and it's so prevalent in culture even now that I don't really need the fluff of like dystopia or sci-fi. I really just love exploring these themes bluntly and realistically. And that's exactly what If I Had Your Face did. Like we're just talking about plastic surgery. We're just talking about different women's experiences with hating their body, loving their body, learning how to love their body. Like that's what I love. That's what I like. And admittedly, like I was very aware that this was written by a man as well. Not that a man can't explore these topics, but I think maybe I didn't feel invested in the characters. Maybe I didn't feel like a ton of zeal about the topics, despite the world centering upon the topics, because it was a man writing women, potentially. I don't know. That was just another thought I had about why this just like kind of fell flat for me. Like I would more so just be curious like what Scott's insecurities are, you know what I mean? Like I think that would be a lot more powerful and how he's worked through that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I prefer the realism. I know for some people the realism is like too much maybe. For me, I think it's just so important. Why are we sugarcoating it? Why are we trying to wrap it up in something extravagant when we can just be blunt about it? Does that make sense? So I don't know. This was just not the format for me to talk about the topics. I thought it was too much. And I'm sure this probably because those aren't the only themes that this series is focusing on, but for me, like that's what I want it to be about. So anyway, as a whole, I think the execution versus my desires was just not a match. And yeah, so I will not be reading pretties or specials either. And I will be rehoming these. So yeah, that's my latest update. Bye. So for today, what I will be focusing on with my reading time are a few things. First and foremost, as I mentioned yesterday, it's Calvin and Hobbes time. It's Calvin and Hobbes time. I need a silly, goofy time, especially after the chaos that was on Clues. So this is my first priority. The Lazy Sunday book. As it should be. This is, I just saw it. This is me today. This is my first priority. I'm going to fly through it. It's going to be a joy. And then my other options today, like I said, I really feel poetry in the summer. So I'm thinking Mary Oliver is going to be around either today or tomorrow. And then the other one that I think I will be focusing on novel-wise will be The Metamorphosis. I didn't realize how short it was because this is a collection. It's not just The Metamorphosis. So The Metamorphosis is actually only like 50 pages. So I'm like, oh, it's a lot more doable than I thought. Perfect length for a readathon. So this is probably going to be the next one I pick up. But yes, I'm going to be going to a friend's house now. And for privacy's sake, I didn't really want to film. So I might get some B-roll and or I'll probably give you like a wrap up at the end of my night. But otherwise, it's pretty brief today. Those are my updates. And I'll definitely talk to you tomorrow and have more content tomorrow at least. So, yeah. Hello. So, in conclusion, for my summer readathon, this was definitely the most scatterbrained I've ever been. So, I finished slash DNF'd 2 books. And I have 5 I made progress in slash I'm in the middle of. And that's just how it goes. I had very limited options for a summer readathon this year just because my weekends got so crazy so fast. There was really not a single weekend I had fully open, so I just made do with one of my less busy weekends, but it was still busy. The next time I'm free will be September, and that's fall, so I can't consider that a summer readathon. So, in scripture, I'm counting that as one of my 5 that I'm in the middle of because I'm always in the middle of scripture. I am rereading the book of Job. And I most recently read chapter 3, where Job is cursing the day that he was born. And I just felt a lot of passion yesterday as I was meditating on that because there's so much about the theology of suffering that humans get hung up on, whether you believe in God or don't. And it oftentimes can boil down to suffering, I believe, for a lot of people. And I just think Job is so real in how he felt like, man, it feels unfair that I lost everything when I didn't deserve it. And in our moments of suffering, we can get so selfish and short-sighted and thinking suffering is just about my discomfort and my unhappiness. And if that's the case, Lord, like, why did you even let me live in the first place? If this was what it was going to amount to, this present moment of misery, whether it's a season you've been going through for a very long time or a season that just started, we've all had moments where it's just so aggravating that we have to be where we're at mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. But I think what is monumental, really, about the Christian faith is even suffering has less to do with you and it has more to do with God's character. not because God's character involves suffering, but God's steadiness and stability is all the more clear because of suffering, because in suffering, we are helpless, we are out of control, and we have to admit that we were never in control. And that's why we need God. That is one of the biggest reasons that we need God, because we don't even know what's best for us. And even when we think we do, it can lead us down paths of destruction. And the other part of theology that a lot of people don't think about when they think about suffering, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, is as humans, our baseline is not good. And because of that, we actually don't deserve anything. We actually haven't earned anything. We actually are not guaranteed or entitled to anything. And that's especially a hot take in the Western world, I believe, because we like to hype each other up by telling each other that we deserve everything. Genuinely, I feel like that's the verbiage that gets used, especially among like Gen Z and younger. And that's just not true. It doesn't mean that you're scum of the earth. People are too heavy on extremes. That's not what that means either. But there is no good that you can do that is apart from God's character, which is good. Good inherently derives out of God's character. So anyway, Job's story of holding fast and then crumbling as soon as his friends reflect his anguish back to him is so human. Because when our friends reflect our anguish, we're like, yeah, it is unfair. And we forget that maybe something's happening through the suffering instead of just us suffering. Maybe we're gaining more empathy for people we didn't have empathy for before. Maybe, probably, there's something to say about endurance and resilience that can only be found through the character of God. So, things to think about. Things I would encourage you to think about. And then, like I said, I've been reading Can I Say That by Brenna Blaine. The chapter I just read is called Can My Humanity Lead to Holiness? And in this chapter, she talked about her struggle with an eating disorder and how she met someone else who similarly struggled and yet found hope that God cared about her physical struggle. Whereas Brenna was like, there's no way he cares about something that self absorbed that I'm going through or that physical that I'm going through. And yeah, I'm just really liking the themes in here. This idea that we can bring the heaviest parts of our story to God's feet, and it's not intimidating and it's not surprising to him. And we can bring things that we think should be contradictory to God's character, and it's not, because God is literally not surprised by anything that we go through, any choices that we make, any identities that we hold. Nothing is new under the sun. And there's actually nothing you can do or say that can separate you from the love of God if you want to pursue Him. So I dipped into some poetry. I started reading some Mary Oliver, which is a joy. I barely got into this at all, but it was a joy. It can be very accessible. It doesn't have to be someone like transition Robert Burns, who was killing me last night. So this is my classical poet collection. So I read some Thomas Gray and I read some Robert Burns, and I can say I will not be reading either of them further. But Robert Burns cracked me up. I didn't realize until yesterday that Robert Burns is Scottish, but I like to say he's Southern because this was hilarious. I started reading his poetry, and I like to read classical poets out loud for better comprehension. And I was like, a diamond ichor in a thrave. It's a smart request. I'll get a blessing with the lave. And I'm like, I feel like I'm having a stroke. I don't understand half of this. What in the world? And then I started reading it in a southern accent. And he's not southern, but he should be because it's way easier to understand in a southern accent. So maybe there's somehow a similarity between Scottish and southern because this was very amusing yesterday. This was very amusing to do. Now hold you there, you're out of sight. Below the fat roll snug and tight. Nay, faith you yet, you'll not be right till you've got on it the very topmost towering height of Mrs. Bonnet. I mean, tell me that's not Southern. It should be, and it is. And I now deem you, Robert Burns, Southern. So that was my enjoyment last night. And then finally, the other novel that I picked up, well, technically it might be a short story. I just started reading The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, who's from Czechia. So I need to like do a little bit of research on Czechia because I've not read from Czechia yet. So this is very exciting. Um, yeah, he wakes up as a beetle and his his boss like shows up at his house like, "Hey dude, you didn't come to work." And his family's like, "Hey, can you like open the door?" And he's like, "I can't even like barely get out of bed. Like I'm a beetle and I don't know what to do." And his name is Gregor, the protagonist. It's very humorous in that it feels a little bit melodramatic and but not too over the top, like just enough that you're like somehow I'm buying it that this man is a beetle and yet he's making it comical. I don't know. It's just like a really good it's a good mix of voice. It's a good mix of the idea that he's a beetle, but like he's being so serious about what he still needs to do for work for the day. And it's just a really enjoyable juxtaposition I'm finding. Because naturally you wake up one day as a beetle, obviously. So I didn't really know what to expect. I'm hoping there will be a little bit more of like some metaphor and symbolism with that throughout the course of it. But in any case, I'm just like thoroughly amused by the dichotomy of a beetle, a man beetle taking life very seriously. So I'm very amused. So I will be continuing this tonight 100%. And with that, I will leave you guys there. Thank you so much for joining me for this cozy readathon. It was all over the place, but yeah, that's just a taste of what I've been reading lately. Still loving Emma M. Lyon. I'm hoping to binge read the rest of them throughout August and get into maybe some denser reads. I feel like I've very much been in like my brain is fried mode. So all of this stuff, the diversity of content, it just being like easier format of reading to read has been working really well. And I'm sure come September, I'll be in much more of like an academic, ready for like denser text vibes. But yeah, just like going between poetry and comics and young adult and silly classic has been really good for where my brain's been at. It's very much needed, like a bunch of lightheartedness, and it just reminds me that I'm continuing to do a good job of like enjoying a hobby that I love while keeping it realistic to where my brain's at. So I've been very pleased with the boundaries I put in place to not try to push myself to read something I absolutely don't have the energy for right now. Sorry, Charles Dickens, I love you, but it just can't be right now. And I'll still get to A Tale of Two Cities at some point, and I know it'll be a joy, but obviously I'm not in a brain space to annotate, so couldn't be right now, just could not possibly be right now. So I'm very grateful for God's timing, honestly. I am just amazed this year how the few books I've picked up, it hasn't been as many as like last year by this time. And yet, whenever I pick stuff up, it always seems to be timely for what I need or what I'm going through. And Brenna's book has been very timely, not just for my life, but for those around me who really need the content that she's talking about. So I've just been very blessed to be sitting in something that's so applicable to life right now. And then on top of that, just things that match my mood is just such a joy. So, yes, I hope you guys are reading some fun stuff. I hope you enjoy some more lightheartedness this summer, whether it's books, whether it's other entertainment, whether it's just taking a nap on the beach or what have you. I will talk to you all later. I hope you have a good night, morning, afternoon, week, month, year, lifetime. Have to be thorough, right? And I will talk to you all later. Bye, friends.